This presentation is about retaining potential foster parents for my specific agency at Easter Seals UCP. Easter Seals UCP is a therapeutic foster agency. We work with both private and public placements. Currently, our problem that we have been facing is losing potential foster parents. We have noticed that there is a high trend of kids coming into care and a lot less kids leaving care. So the need for foster parents is out there both in our county as well as nationwide. For example, in Onslow County, as of September 30th, 2015, there was 196 kids in care. Only 1 year later, they reported about 268 kids in care, and this does not count kids that were in the program but then may have discharged before the year was up. When they totaled the amount served, it actually totaled over 400. But there is not that many active foster parents in the Onslow County area. So we see the need for this. Foster parents in this area is great. For the purposes of this evaluation, my hypothesis is that the confidence levels on the survey that I will be giving these potential foster parents will be higher on the post-test than the pre-test. So the literature review. The literature review that I'm going to be talking about, in my research, I found that 3 key factors were for why people did not complete their application to become foster parents. The first one was feeling a lack of support from the agency. They didn't feel supported by those around them to complete the process. 2 was not being able to the agency wasn't open to adoption. While a lot of foster parents tend to do this the rest of their life, at some point at some time there usually is an adoption conversation about 1 or 2 children. Some agencies were shut off from this. They just wanted foster parents, and this kind of turned away a lot of foster parents from becoming licensed with that agency. Third was the application process. The application process can take up from 6 months to a year, and during that time they found this process very tedious and very long. The 2 programs that I evaluated for the literature review is the state program, just because this is like the state basic requirements. For the state of North Carolina, you have to be 21 years old, have mental and physical health, good mental and physical health, and there has to be a mutual home assessment done on you or anyone in your home over the age of 10. This mutual home assessment is where the application process can get tedious. It goes through every single history, criminal, family history, the way you raised kids, the differences between you and your spouse, or how you've raised your kids so far, and it usually totals about 3 3-hour conversations that you have to have with the licensing coordinator. The MATCH program, or MATCH project, is actually a project in Kentucky that I found very interesting. They specify 5 interventions for recruitment and retaining foster parents. 2 of the biggest components of this program was that they used current foster parents to both train and recruit. And they also used new foster parents to provide respite or a temporary placement for children already in care as a way of preparing them for their first placement. And while both of these ideas are good, the current Easter Seals currently is not ready for that in their processes. So my program is actually structured as a 2-fold kind of program. We currently use Pressley Ridge as a training. It's a 10 to 12 week training covering all of the things that is required by the state. We actually the state only requires 30 hours of training. We do 40 because we are a higher level of care for mental health. During Pressley Ridge, that's a 10-week process. They will learn about being foster parents, crisis intervention, communication with parent, kids, mental health, diagnoses, all of that general stuff that's going to prepare them to be a foster parent, as well as getting to learn who is on their team. The second part of this is that mutual home assessment that I talked about previously. Usually we wouldn't begin that until after they had completed the Pressley Ridge training, and you have to dedicate 3 different 3-hour sessions, so a total of 9 hours to this mutual home assessment, which can be very tedious, very long, and it's a big commitment. So what we've been doing with this is I have broken it down to 1 hour once a week for a longer period of time to help with this tediousness of it. So the goal of this intervention is to provide potential foster parents with training and support to be successful and have successful placements, as well as the objective is to improve foster parent confidence overall, which is going to address that feelings of lack of support. So for my logic model, I told y'all previously about the services that we're offering. Currently, our services, we have 4 foster families signed up for the next Presley Ridge. Our resources are our trainers, the snacks we provide. We do all of our training in-house. So CPR, certification, everything that the state requires, we do ourselves. For outcomes, 3 different outcomes were identified in my logic model. One being practice good strategies with kids. This is going to be taught to them in the training. Having good strategies with these kids is like interventions, thinking outside the box when working with these children, and that's going to be indicated in practice. We're not going to be able to see this until after their first placement, but that's going to be a way for us to evaluate how our training went. The second one is developing a good support group. This is a community support group. During our training, we actually address this, and we talk about having natural supports for different various things, like if they need a night out or break. And we're also currently working with the community as a way of becoming more supportive of our foster parents. The third last one is reaching out for help. This is the one we really want to address and more in our training, as well as meeting with them, going ahead and starting to meet with them once a week, giving them that support, letting them know that those lines of communication are there and that they should be utilized. And this, of course, will be indicated in practice when they reach out to us with their concerns and fears. As for our measurements, I use the Easter Seals UCP survey tool, which I'll get into more later when I'm breaking it down for you. But that's just our measurement tool that we used. As for target behavior, we're again trying to enhance confidence in potential foster parents that will be licensed with Easter Seals UCP. For methods, our sample is any potential foster parent who walks through the door. So it's not a random sample, but we accept anyone, demographic, socioeconomic status, anyone that can pass a background check, is not relying, like they can show another source of income other than foster care, and really has the heart to work with these kids, can become a foster parent with us. My design for this is the one group pre-test, post-test. I have initiated a second post-test after the first month of placement just to kind of gauge their confidence level of that. This is going to be utilized that way. That pre-test is kind of a baseline of their confidence level of coming in. They know nothing about foster care. They're absolute no knowledge. And then that post-test is going to be used as a way of seeing where we could potentially be better. And it's also going to help us be able to support them in the ways that they feel like they need to be supported. As for when we're going to collect this, again, we're going to collect that first pretest at the very first night before training starts. The first post-test will be collected that last night of training to gauge how well our training was and boosting their confidence. And then the third post-test will be given after sometime in that first month of their first placement, just to see an overall picture and more just to gain knowledge more for the agency. As for measurements, we have the Easter Seals UCP Potential Foster Parent Survey. I designed this with my supervisor and with Dr. Strong's help. This is what it looks like. It's 14 questions, and each question is related to some sort of concern or thing that will be addressed in training. And they ranges from 1 to 5, 1 being no confidence in this particular thing, 5 being very confident. So they can have a total of 70 points, which indicates a very high confidence, or they can have a total of 14 points indicating a low confidence, which tells us that we need to give them more support, whether that be a phone call or meeting with them, or maybe they have more questions, meeting them with individually. As for my analysis, I was not able to do this because our next Presley Ridge starts in May, but for the analysis of this, you would be using a paired t-test. It would be paired because we're asking them to put their names on this. That way we can track their confidence levels, and so we can at the end show them where they were versus at the end of training in the first placement where they are now, to kind of give them that encouragement boost. The limitations that I noticed with this is this hasn't been done before, so we have a very small sample because it's a nonprofit, it's not very big, and it's not a random sample, which can kind of lead towards the external validity. However, the random sample I feel like isn't relevant to this because any person who walks through that door is going to get a survey, no matter who they are or where they come from, because a random sample, it'd be better to kind of give a whole, like if we can only have 6 people, I'm not going to just choose 5, I'm going to go ahead and include that 6th person in my data collection. So I didn't feel like it might be a limitation currently, but as the agency grows, we won't see this as much of a limitation. Another thing is the survey. We developed the survey because the agency had requested one that was specifically geared towards their population and what they're trying to do in their program. Thus, this survey has not been tested for validity or reliability, but will be tested once there has been a couple of trials with this. Another thing is there is no comparison group. Because we're testing everyone that comes through that door, there's no way to create a comparison group of people who aren't going to be foster parents. So that's where the internal validity could potentially be a limitation, just because the agency is wanting people to succeed. As for how this can impact the agency, this is going to be a great tool for the agency because it not only gives them a picture of what their potential foster parents are looking at and how they're coming into the agency, but it also allows them to see where they're at. It gauges where the potential foster parents are at, and it allows them to open those lines of communication so that we can be more successful in retaining some foster parents and getting more help for these kids. Other designs or strategies that I think would be great to have is like what that MATCH program is doing in Kentucky, of utilizing foster parents as trainers, and maybe even utilizing new foster parents as respite before they're even get their first placement, as a way of easing them into the program. Right now the agency isn't ready for that, but I think that's something that down the road the agency would be really interested in maybe incorporating into their application and becoming a foster parent process. These are my references. I had a lot. Thank you guys so much. I hope that this helps out.